Hi everyone, this is the update for today, the 13th of April 2026. Today I was back in the schools. I was at the Roadrunner School today and working in a fourth grade class. This is a classroom I've been in a small handful of times already this year. And, you know, introduce you now to one particular type of comment that I oftentimes put in my reports to teachers. And that is that, you know, and this is of course after reading or writing all the other stuff that happens, and as I'm sure you can probably guess, as to somebody who just posts a 10-minute rambling video talking about just about everything under the sun each day. Um, I can be pretty verbose in my reports. Now, if it's a teacher that I know doesn't really, or they're like, I just skim them, or I just kind of breeze over them anyway, once they tell me something like that, okay, I'll just send you a text if there are any issues. Um, but for most of them, I will write like a full report. And um, and oftentimes I end up including a comment along the following lines. You know, I don't want to lose track or lose sight of the 90% of the class that had a great day while we were focused on all the other things that I've described in this report. This was one of those type of days. And I really truly from the bottom of my heart believe, that we need to focus and recognize those 90%, for their efforts of, doing the right thing. And it gets so easy, particularly in a role such as being a sub, of just focusing on how much negative can you record down in a certain amount of time, when really we're there to serve, everyone, including all those that are giving it their best shot and following all the expectations and whatnot. Because mathematically, when you add it up, almost all classes, statistically speaking, when you are adding up overall behaviors, are overwhelmingly, or at least majority, positive behaviors. And on days when we have to do a lot of documenting and stuff of the other, I just really try not to lose sight of all the good that goes on in a room on any given day. And we don't have the time or the space in my reports to include all that stuff. But yeah. Anyway, that's just kind of my philosophy on that. And so this was let's try to remember the 90% day. So now when after getting off from there, I ended up having to do a little bit more with this tax situation that I've been talking about in the last few days. That was kind of a not so welcome surprise last Tuesday when I did taxes. And a little bit more detail on that. In short, it's something that the issue came from my own bumbling of something, or not handling something correctly at a time that I needed to handle it. I have, in my opinion, a good sob story for it, but a lot of people have a lot of sob stories for a lot of different things. In my case, it was, basically because of a whole bunch of unforeseen expenses and whatnot. When this thing with mom happened, basically ended up pulling retirement money because cash flow issues and having to miss a bunch of work and all sorts of other things that have been stacking up ever since Dad's stroke. Basically withdrew a bunch of retirement money to clear the slate of everything and start fresh. And that had been stacking up since, again, Dad's stroke like 4 years ago. And overall, good decision to get rid of, to just flush almost the vast majority of stuff that I had going on, just flush it all out. That being said, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to do that, depending on whatever financial service provider that you use, there's probably going to be some option along the lines of, would you like to withhold for next year's taxes? Based on my experience this year, I would recommend, if you're ever to be in that situation, to select yes. There's going to be a penalty, and it's going to put you into a different, worse tax bracket. And at the time that I did this was right after Mom had her accident, and everything was kind of falling apart. And I did this, and did I have them withhold money for next year's taxes? No, I didn't. And so, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get to that. And obviously, if you've been following the trajectory of what my family's situation has been going on, like since September, or for that matter, even earlier because of this stroke, there's been just kind of one thing after another. And, didn't select that withholding. Never thought about it again. At least in depth, because of all the other stuff going on. Just with it kind of in the back of my mind, yeah, there's probably some tax implication from back when, but whatever, didn't really think about it much until I filed. Ruh-roh. So, government be like, yeah, so, about that money you were withholding for us, and they did that to me. And it sucks. The thing about this is, though, and this is the part of this that I have a really hard time comprehending. In my case, I'm going to be okay. And that's because, quite simply, this was not my last little bit of money. My last dollar. Because I truly have to wonder, for somebody who is in a situation like this, where there is some bad life situation that unfortunately is not on the allowed approved hardship withdrawals for pulling retirement early. Unfortunately, severe family medical situation is not one of the ones on the approved IRA early dispersion list. If it was, this wouldn't be an issue. But I see it as being a possible thing where somebody could hypothetically be in a situation where they're, they have, say, 10 or 15 or whatever $1,000 left in a retirement account. And it's like the last of their funds. And they have to pull it out because of some hardship. Then in April they get slapped with this. What do they do? Just be in debt forever? I mean, if I was not able to do this, the way that, if I didn't have something else I could pull and withhold the right amount so I don't get stuck in a loop of having to do this every year, if I didn't have that to do this time to clear all this up, what do you do? You just get deeper and deeper and deeper into it? What are you even supposed to do? But the fact that I know that is something now that can happen, I'm going to be the most frugal cheapskate you've ever met, I think. Anyway, thanks for joining me all the way to the end. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Ciao for now.